7:17, call the meeting to order. We'll do the flag salute. Roll call.
Ms. Bollenbacher. Mr. Chandler is absent. Ms. Compatella.
Here.
Mr. Lavasser. Here. Mr. Marks. Here. Mr. Oliverio.
Here.
Mr. Radilla. Here. Mayor Perry.
Here.
Solicitor Cornwall.
Here.
Engineer Minsterman.
Here.
And myself. We have a quorum.
Great. All right, the consent agenda, approval of minutes from February 24th of 2022 and the bill lists from March 10th of 2022. These were all put on the OneDrive for council. So a motion to approve the March 10th, 2022 consent agenda. All right,
Second.
Aaron, Kirsten, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. So public comments on agenda items. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue appearing on today's agenda. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Comments on non-agenda items will be taken at the end of tonight's meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesman to represent them before council who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please sign in or raise your hand on Zoom and state your name and physical address for the record. Okay. Anybody signed in? I believe there wasn't. Anybody on Zoom?
We have some attendees on Zoom. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand. Not seeing any movement.
All right. First item, President's report. Everything's in the agenda, nothing to report. Mayor's report.
Okay, so we have had some persistent issues over there on Perrine in spite of our detour signs. On Tuesday, we had a 53-foot tractor trailer go down Perrine. So the chief went over there and did his best, and the manager and the chief have gotten the contractors to put no truck signs on the detour signs. Additionally, the fire chief has brought the issue of a growing issue with cars parked too close to the corners, which would prevent the fire equipment from making the turns correct safely. So the police department will be issuing warnings to cars that are parked too close to corners in the coming days. The manager is reviewing the parking study that was made a couple of years ago by the police department. And what he's going to have to do is that there is an ordinance that lists all of the no parking areas in the borough. So those lists are going to have to be reconciled. If we have any areas that are on the parking study that are not in the ordinance, we'll have to be looking at updating the ordinance. And then additionally, the manager will be looking at any additional curb painting or signage that needs to be done. That's it.
Great, thank you. Engineers report.
Nothing to report outside of what is in my report.
Okay, great. Solicitors report.
Nothing additional to report tonight.
Great, great. Managers report.
I did submit a written report to the OneDrive. I have nothing else if there's any questions.
All right. Standing committee reports. So we'll go through the committees. The first one, Finance and Administration. Ms. Perry.
So we have a 2021 financial report. I believe it's been put in the OneDrive. Or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay, so we have the commented 2021 financial report that will be going in the drive. It's all been commented, and what I have to report tonight is kind of a summary of what that shows. But so what will be put in the OneDrive and then also available to the public with this summary appended to it. So basically, our revenue was about $240,000 above projection. And that is largely due to the $300,000 that we received in ARPA grant money, the COVID relief money. Most of those funds are being earmarked for lost revenue, some of it in 2022 and the couple years beyond that, which is allowed, and there's a whole schedule for that. And then also we are using some of it for the AV upgrades that we're all looking at right now. So there were a few slight over and under percentages in our significant income categories that basically averaged out, nothing to really be concerned about. The things that I'd like to call out is that for pretty obvious reasons, that being COVID, our permits and fines trended low, about $10,000 low. Income on investments trended low as well because PNC lowered their rates significantly. We are transferring or have transferred our banking to Huntington, so that will improve somewhat in 2022, but probably not to its previous higher levels. The other one to call out is our garbage collection rate, which is only about 89%, which leaves the borough with a $73,000 shortfall. And that's been trending in that direction over the last several years. So what that means is that other taxes are covering the cost of garbage, because by law, we are required to collect everyone's garbage, whether they pay or not. Recreation fees were down about 31,000. And that's attributable to we didn't have chair rentals. The pool concession stand didn't sell hot food. And we didn't have Crafton Celebrates, and there had been some revenue that had been slated for that. And then we did get, which we did hear about in our engineering meeting earlier, $375,000 for grants for the various park improvements that were done in 2019, 2020. And we'll see a little later in the report where we spent that. So then notable expenses that were off budget, council meeting expenses, we're showing the $28,000 over, which was the first payment for the AV upgrade, which is being paid for through the ARPA funds. Our auditing fee was over budget because we have retained Basic Business for financial and accounting help. And that had been recommended as early as 2017 in our early intervention plan. We just finally did it this past year, and that was done after the budget was set. Our administrative salaries were 100,000 under budget, and that's largely due to the fact that our manager position was open for most of the year. General engineering was $47,000 higher than budgeted, and that was largely due to work required for the bond preparation, pool and park improvements that probably were not appropriately budgeted in 2021 in order for some of that pool work that we just talked about. And then there were a number of projects, Willard, Bar Avenue, that emergency demolition, the magistrate roof, which became somewhat of an emergency as well, and then some additional grant applications. Our police overtime was 48% over budget. That was only 12,000, but that was due to the extra duty for filming. And that expense was offset by revenue from the filming company. So there was no net cost to us. Our part-time wages were about 10,000 over budget. And that was because we kept some of our seasonal help for extended time in order to address some of the work that had been delayed due to COVID in the previous year. And for obvious reasons, we were slightly over budget on snow removal and anti-skid because we've had so many years that have been trending to less snow. And so the budget was adjusted to reflect that. And then we got a little more than we bargained for this year. So, and then what we'll see is that the new play surfaces and play equipment that we heard about in the meeting a little bit earlier make it look like the park improvements were $230,000 over budget, but that is offset by that revenue that I mentioned earlier. And the repairs and maintenance to the borough-owned property was about $9,000 over budget. And that had to do with some unanticipated expenses, including those 2 garage doors that Doug and I were talking about. And some carpeting and general repair in spring of 2021 that was the magistrate's office, I think. The park, yeah. And then finally, shade tree expenses were $30,000 over budget due to the decision to be much more aggressive about removing dangerous and nuisance trees as deemed by the professional arborist in order to avoid potential liability. So that's that. At the end of the day, we're in really good shape. Most of these things are the kinds of variances that you would see from year to year. And at the end of the day, everything's cool. Does anybody have any questions?
I think to acknowledge the prior council for managing the budget so well to come out, better than plan is definitely commendable. So kudos to that. I think I'd also like to get an opinion of where we are from this year's perspective, given the state of the economy, the fuel and inflation happening. What are your thoughts or concerns from being fiscally responsible this year?
Well, I think, and our manager could probably speak to this a little bit, but obviously where we're talking about fuel, there's a lot of fuel consumption in the borough. So we're likely going to see areas along there that are going to be over budget. Doug, can you think of anything else? I mean,
Mentioned garbage, there's a
Yes.
fuel kicker on that'll come in, and then just in terms of the overall bids that we're gonna be going out, there's a lot of unknown and fluctuation in that. So those are the main concerns right now. Obviously, if the economy takes more of a hit, then our wage taxes will reduce, but we're not at that point yet. But we are gonna be going over in fuel and moreover, what's the moreover on garbage? I don't know what.
yes. So our garbage. So we've actually already issued the garbage for this year.
Yes.
So we'll want to be doing whatever we can to increase our collection, because that was billed out without the concerns about a fuel kicker. So there are going to be some areas we're going to need to watch. There may be some things that we maybe as we meet each month, look at what's trending and whether there's some things we might consider not doing this year. But overall, our reserves are in really good shape, so we should be able to withstand those things without too much damage.
Any questions? Can you give an update on the organizational assessment at all too?
We did have an update from Jason and Deb Grass at the finance meeting, and that is proceeding at pace. They have pretty much attended most of our board and commission meetings. They've talked with almost all the stakeholders at this point. So they should be turning to report writing pretty soon. So but we did neglect to ask their expected completion. Have you had any discussion about that?
Still looking at the end of May, I believe is what they said. Mid-May. But no, yes, they've met, like the mayor and stuff. They met with all the committees. They attended their meetings. interviewed the staff. It's progressing. They have been working.
Great. Anything else?
I think that's quite enough.
Okay, thank you. Community Services and Infrastructure, Ms. Compatello.
Sure. First thing on our agenda is that the demolition of 52 Baldwick. Sounds like that has started and is well underway. Doug, you want to give any other updates on that? I have not been over there today.
Yes, the contractor has started after somewhat of a lengthy delay. We had sent several notices, so he did get our message, and it is progressing.
All right, next thing on our agenda is the Crafton Parks master plan, master site plan update. That is still moving along on schedule, and we'll be reviewing that at our next council meeting. But in anticipation of that, we wanted to give an update on where that's at. We are also preparing to go after a grant, a DCNR grant, which will require a 50% match from the borough for whatever we decide to go after. And that's the part that's still being worked out right now between all of the different recommendations that are being developed by our consultant in that parks master site plan. We are looking at which ones are the highest priority and which ones do we think that we can actually feasibly afford next year, and then put together a grant application for a project that we'll be pursuing. And so at our
thing. So basically, one of the things that the Finance Committee has been working on is looking at what we have available in the bond fund. And largely what I think we're going to be looking at is that money that we have just saved by downsizing the Public Works building and the subsequent lower building costs. We've kind of earmarked that as money that would be appropriate to allot for that kind of matching. So I just wanted to, ahead of the next meeting, when we have a motion for that, to let council know that the Finance Committee has looked at it and that we do have the kinds of funds that we will be asking for. And the other thing that's important to note, that when we put the motion to apply for the grant, while it is essentially a commitment to meet the match, that will not come out of the 2022 budget. It will be money that we will be looking at budgeting for 2023 and 2024.
Right, well, you covered all the important details. Council will have 2 actions to take in over the next 2 to 3 meetings. But the next meeting, we will be talking about we'll be passing a resolution to pursue a grant for the amount that is still being finalized, but will be, like the mayor said, basically responding to the funds that we just saved from downsizing the Public Works building. We're looking at doing an amount somewhere in that range that we can use as a 50% match. So we would be able to do a project twice that size for one or several of the projects that are coming out of that parks site master plan. And so we're still working on finalizing what the specific projects would be and what the specific costs will be. But we're looking at a series of improvements, primarily to Linwood Park and Noble Park. So that'll be our first action. At our next council meeting, we'll have finalized numbers, a finalized project ready for us to pass the resolution to prepare to submit a grant. And then after that, and actually at our next meeting, we'll be having a presentation by the consultant of the entire parks site development, the entire parks master site plan. I can't talk tonight. They'll be giving a presentation of the entire plan, and council will also need to adopt that plan. That doesn't have to happen at the same time. Those are 2 separate actions. One to pass the resolution to go after a grant, and then a separate action to approve the parks plan as a full document. Are there any questions on that? The next item on the agenda for this committee is that the zoning RFP is posted and is open for proposals through March 15th. We went over that last time. There's no new updates to say at this time, other than that is still open, and we will be closing next week and then starting to look at what proposals we've received. The fourth item for this committee is the local share account statewide grant. The state is accepting grant applications that improve the quality of life in the community. We are looking at applying for a grant to improve lighting and landscaping improvements and include an electric vehicle charging station as part of the Crafton Boulevard Phase 2 streetscape project. These are improvements that we've talked about in the past with the engineer. They were part of the Crafton Boulevard Phase 2 streetscape project. We had made the decision to take them out of that project in order to cut back on costs. And now we have the opportunity to pursue this new grant that will make up the cost and allow those to be put back in. So I am advancing a motion to adopt a resolution number 2022-006 requesting a statewide local share assessment grant of $140,000 for the purchase and installation of lighting and landscaping and electric vehicle charging station for the Crafton Boulevard Phase 2 streetscape project.
So, any discussion or questions? So we had Philip and then Aaron second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes.
All right, and then final item for the infrastructure committee, the Public Works building facility. We received 4 bids for the Public Works facility building package Phase 2 project. The low bidder for the project is Fleer Contracting in the amount of $631,651 for the base bid, and an additional $8,100, which is an additional alternate bid that covers the supply and installation of 10 windows. That was determined to be a good deal, so we're going to go ahead and recommend that we do that. This is for the building, the steel structure only. This will put up the building. It will not finish out the interiors. That will be a Phase 3 step, which will come later. And that is currently estimated at $800,000, but that is a separate piece from what we're talking about right now. So I'm advancing a motion to award the base bid and add the alternate bid number 1 for that additional $8,100 for the Phase 2 Crafton Department of Public Works facility building project to Fleer Contracting LLC in the amount of $639,751.
So moved.
Second.
Philip and Justin, any discussion?
Actually, may I make a comment?
Absolutely.
As it pertains to the interior work, that $800,000 amount that's listed there for Phase 3, that encompasses estimates that are external items as well. That's not just the building out of space interior wise. That's to actually do parking lots, other types of improvements. So anybody has any questions about that, we can have a discussion at a later time.
And I think we're also looking at having our public works team do some of that work too, so that we don't have to incur the maximum 800, because that team can actually do a lot of the work.
That's right. That estimate was a top estimate if we are having all of the work done externally, which is not our expectation.
Mhm.
But again, that would be Phase 3, and that's not part of what we're
Mhm.
talking about today.
Any other comments or questions? Vince?
Yeah, real quick. For Phase 2, what did we originally budget or guess?
The original estimate was around 800,000, and it reduced a little bit because we reduced the size of the building. So with that, the original estimate would have been somewhere around 70 or $700 and probably $20,000.
And the correction, which was as a result of lowering, we estimated about six.
Any more questions or discussion? All right. Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, motion passes. Anything else?
That's all for me.
Okay, thank you. Communication, recreation, community events, Mr. Marks.
Yeah, so the newsletter should be hitting mailboxes here in a day or two. We do currently have it posted on the website. So if you head to craftonborough.com and go under community and newsletter, you can start checking it out now. I do encourage everybody to to read it, see what's going on, right? Meet the new council members, right? There's some good info on there. And as everybody had asked for, the trash calendar is on there, and we do have a page in it asking for feedback. You are welcome to fill that out and drop it off at the borough office in the Dropbox, or you can mail it in. There's also a digital version of it that you can access on the website as well. So please check it out, send your feedback in. We'd love to get some input for the next version. That's all I have on the newsletter, unless anyone has any questions. Nope. All right, item number 2, right, Crafton hires seasonal staff to help manage and operate the pool during the summer season, as everyone knows. And with that, there were some adjustments to salaries and hourly wages for the pool personnel. Doug, I know we talked with and did some study of other pools in the area, and you talked with.
Yeah, so the county pool has kind of been the baseline. They are paying their lifeguards between $16 and $18 an hour. We're at $15 for a lifeguard and then $16 for the head guard. Those increased from $10 for the lifeguard last year, I believe. So these are significant increases, but due to the the prevailing wages that we need to pay for the lifeguards to get them.
Real quickly, I'm just going to pull up the. Yep, here it is. Let me zoom in. So these are the proposed wages for personnel. I know it might be a little bit hard to read with the strikeouts, but just so that everybody can see, these would be the adjustments we'll be voting on in this resolution. So I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2022-004, establishing salary and wage rates for seasonal employees.
So moved.
Right, Kirsten.
Second.
Philip seconds. Any discussion or questions? Absolutely, Ms. Mayor.
Yes, sorry, this was a draft that very easily showed the changes from what we're going from and what we're going to. So I thought this might be a good document to bring up. So if there was any discussion, everybody kind of understands what the changes actually are.
And this isn't just for the pool too. So also notice that this is for seasonal labor that we hire for the summer season to initially help Public Works.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
As it pertains to the pool manager, we have one, is the $500 bump sufficient? I know there was questions last year about the level of effort put in under the manager's duties.
The manager actually proposed these rates, so they are acceptable to them.
So there's going to be no complaints this year.
Well, I would wouldn't say that.
Mhm. Great. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, motion passes.
All right, and then item number 3, the 2022 pool rates. So I'll bring that up too. Let me zoom in here.
And why Council Member Marks is pulling that up, what we looked at in the committee, we did raise rates, but we raised them on the non-resident side. And for non-resident is Ingram, Thornburg, Roslyn, and Carnegie. We kept the Crafton, the resident rates, the same as last year. So we only increase on the non-resident side.
Yep, so you can see here, these are the resident pool pass rates, right, including the daily admission, the season passes, the family season passes, and there were no proposed adjustments to those. The non-resident pool pass rates, were adjusted. You can see that season passes increased by, a little bit here and there. Family season passes went up. The Crafton Crocodile swim team, we didn't make any changes to that. And let's see, pool rentals for nonprofits went up a little bit. Non-resident private party rentals, private party pricing went up, and swim lessons were bumped.
And I'd be remiss to say that the pool, and I know we've discussed this, it loses money every year.
And
Subsidized, yes, the taxpayers of Crafton subsidize the pool operations to the tune of, was it 60,000 last year? Yes, it's a significant number.
And that information is in the newsletter for the past 3 years, so residents can check that information out on the pool, but that's an important thing. We do have non-residents that utilize the pool, but the subsidy is done by the Crafton taxpayers.
so are there any other rates that anybody wanted me to scroll up or down to while we're mulling it over?
This was on the OneDrive too, so
Yes.
people had this.
Yes, I actually have paper copies over here if that's easier to to read too.
Okay.
Cool. So so again, to summarize, rates were increased for non-resident, the Ingram, Thornburg, Roslyn Farms, and Carnegie attendees, pass holders, right, due to the increase in labor costs that we just passed. So I will move on a motion to adopt resolution number 2022-005, amending resolution 2021-023, which sets the fee schedule for the year 2022.
Kirsten. Second, Aaron. Discussion, questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes.
And that's all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marks.
Did we have another topic we wanted to discuss from an email? Is that going to be on tonight's agenda?
I think that was getting moved to the communications committee agenda, and we were going to talk there. So
On Monday. No, yeah.
yes, you did.
Okay. Next is commission's vacancy. Mr. Chandler's not here. I can address this one. So we now have 22 open vacancies on the boards and commissions. One more was added from the COG requirement, which was the appeals board. So we're required to submit at least one candidate for one of the 3 positions for the appeals or for the appeals board for the COG. Those will be voted on by the COG, so that candidate may or may not make it onto the appeals board. So that was added. So we currently have 22 open vacancies that'll be open either this year or expire terms from prior years. These are all listed on the website, and I encourage residents to check them out. We do have an online application, or you can print an application and bring it in. Those are all due March 21st, and we will go through a meeting process with each of the candidates. I highly encourage our council to recruit and to reach out to residents that would be qualified for those roles. We want to fill all 22. I think it's important from an engagement standpoint. And of course, for all of our residents to make sure that they are out there recruiting, and or if they're interested. If you have any questions, reach out to me, reach out to our staff or any council member about those positions. Because we want to get people engaged, and this is really a great way to have a voice in the community. These boards and commissions work really hard to make a lot of the programs, as you can see, that we're talking about. So any other comments or questions? Okay. Next is Council of Governments, COG, Mr. Riddell.
Hello, so no update. Our next meeting will be next Thursday, the 17th. Stowe Township will be hosting. So if anyone on council wants to join me, let me know. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next item, community announcements, upcoming council meetings. So the next council meeting, and please note of this, is March 24th, 2 weeks from now at 6:30 p.m. As Ms. Companello had mentioned, we are going to have a presentation of the Master Parks Plan at that meeting. So we will be starting 45 minutes early.
Just to add, the Master Parks Plan will be presented by the consultant in attendance. That will be the first thing on the agenda. So that will be starting at 6:30.
Okay, great. Any other community announcements or anything else from our council members? Okay, so at this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address council. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please raise your hand or acknowledge those present. If you would like to speak, state your name and physical address for the record. Nobody in person? Anybody online?
Don't see any hand raised.
Okay, great. So motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Justin, Kirsten. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.